Good morning. It's Friday, and today I'm going to talk about resiliency and empathy. Please follow my Charlene page. Go to YouTube at Charlene April, follow my videos, and my blog posts will be on Facebook. And you can still follow me on my regular Facebook to see all the other interesting stuff that I find interesting. Anyway, so resilience and empathy. I'm not sure how I got to be so resilient. I don't understand how two people can go through a similar situation and one can come out the other end and the other one can fall through the cracks. I think that if things had been much different in my upbringing, I would have fallen through the cracks. And is it because my grandmother raised me for the first year of my life that I didn't fall through the cracks? But then my grandmother raised my mother full time, and my mom definitely fell through the cracks. I grew up not feeling good enough, always having to be 10 steps ahead of my mom in order to make my life easier. Because if I knew what to expect, then I could prepare for it. I always wanted to be the perfect daughter, the best daughter, and not with grades, because as long as I wasn't failing, I don't even remember my mom saying anything about my report card. It was more of how I acted at home, how I talked to my mom, how I interacted with her, how I kept my room, if and when I asked to be with friends. Sometimes she'd get upset if I was away from home too much, hanging outside with my friends. But then again, I would be at home and we wouldn't be doing anything together. She spent a lot of time in her room. Anyway, I think that I'm resilient in part because I knew what life could be like because of my grandparents. Not only did I live with them and my mom for about the first year of my life, I also went and visited my grandparents every year for 2 to 3 weeks in the summer. And during those 2 to 3 weeks, I got to see what routine was like. How my grandparents had like Beanie Weenie Wednesdays, where they would eat certain things on certain days, they would do certain activities on certain days. They had gotten to a point in their life where everything was organized. They knew what to expect. And because they knew what to expect, everything was always organized. They were always on time. They always knew what was happening next. And I really felt that if my mom had that same type of organization at our home, that things wouldn't be so stressful for her. But then again, I didn't really understand mental illness to the extent that I understand now. Somehow I always knew that life was better or was going to get better, or I knew that my home life was not like other people's home lives. I also knew that there was little that I could do about it. I always hoped that things would get better. I felt that things would get better at some point. I just didn't know how much time I would have to spend in the states that I was in order to get to essentially where I am now. I have control over my own life. I still have nightmares about my mom being back and having to live with her and having to cope with her instability. My grandfather is a very OCD person, and my mother is, well, at least when I knew her, she was quite the opposite, and I can imagine that she drove him absolutely nuts. And maybe it was a mixture of the fact that my mom got prescribed Valium after she had her first baby in 1970, and that started her, I'm pretty sure that's what started her lifelong pill addiction. Although my grandmother mentioned that she was into the drugs, and then she got pregnant, and she got pregnant at 14, so she must have been into the drugs at 13, 14, so I don't know what she was into. I'm sure it wasn't anything too much harder than like marijuana and mushrooms and hash because well, the baby was fine. And also, my mom did go back to school and she finished high school and she finished with excellent grades. And even though she'd skipped a grade earlier before the pregnancy, she didn't miss any school having been away for the pregnancy. And pretty sure she graduated on time. I don't think she graduated early because of the pregnancy, but she graduated on time. But still, having had the support and structure and stability, having come home after having had that baby, my mom still did not find those tracks again. She still didn't get back into the swing of life. She fell apart. And was it the drugs? Was it the pregnancy? I guess it depends on your experience and your opinion on what you think about that. And myself, I was put on antidepressants when I was really young. Now they're not Valium, they're not addictive like that, but I just drove through, like even through the times when I felt that I wanted to kill myself. I just somehow managed to be able to work through it all and be here. Like, I'm 37, and sometimes I don't know how I got here. There's lots of people that experience worse and lots of people that experience less. But I firmly believe that it doesn't matter what type of trauma you experience, it still does the same thing to the brain. Trauma is trauma, and we all have to learn how to live with it and to be able to move forward from it, because the more that we try to forget it or deny it, the worse it becomes. Even though we're not shining a light right on it, it still will eat away at us. Trauma can be deadly. I'm just glad that I've made it as far as I have. And I hope that anyone else who feels that they just can't move forward, just try to take it just for the next 5 minutes, and then for the next 5 minutes after that, and for the next 5 minutes after that. You can do it. I did. And sometimes I still don't feel like I can, but it gets better. It'll get better. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.